So one thing that I've come to understand or believe over time is that inflammation is the single greatest mediator of almost all disease. Now, it's not as simple as saying, well, you know what, then all we have to do is take care of the inflammation and then you won't have any disease, because there are so many factors involved in inflammation. Inflammation can be mediated by both internal and external factors. By that I mean within the body and external to the body outside in the environment. Now, it seems like that's a Nobel Prize winning statement, meaning that, hey, all we have to do is control the inflammation and we can eradicate all disease. As I tell you over and over again as it relates to breathing, being a multifactorial entity, inflammation is even more multifactorial. It's like multifactorial. Why? Because inflammation can come from so many different places. It can come from within our bodies. It can come from within our homes. It can come from our environment. It can come from where we work. It can come from what we eat. It can come from the things that we put in our body, like cigarette smoke, etc., etc., etc. But again, it is so crucial that we try to quiet that inflammation at every opportunity that we get to do it. And this inflammatory process is so intimately linked to the sympathetic nervous system, the nervous system that's known as the fight or flight response system. Think about it. When you get nervous, when you get anxious, when you get excited, where do you feel it? You feel it in your gut. You feel it in your breathing. You may feel it in your chest. This is what we need to address all day, every day, because the sympathetic nervous system, when overactive, will kill you. Let's start by going back maybe 10 million years. Let's go back about 10 million years or so, because I'm not a history buff. But let's go back to caveman times when these systems were developing as a protective mechanism. So the sympathetic nervous system came about so that when a caveman was out picking berries and he either tried to get picked up by a pterodactyl or he got jumped on by a saber-toothed tiger, he could either choose to fight or flee, okay? One of those two was going to save his life. So when you have a sympathetic outflow, okay, and it's an adrenergic system, okay, this is the adrenergic nervous system, meaning that it's mediated by adrenaline, right? Epinephrine. So this is like you get this surge of energy. And what does this do? It lets you see better. It lets you breathe better. It lets your heart pump stronger. It delivers blood flow to the working muscles so you can either fight or run away. All well and good if you're a caveman walking around picking berries and you either try to get picked up by a pterodactyl or a saber-toothed tiger jumps on your back. Not so good in today's society, okay? In today's society, there is this constant assault on our system, and it comes in the form of television, internet, cell phones, human behavior, the foods we eat, the things we drink, the poisons that we put in our body, the stress that we inflict on ourselves and others that gets this system going again. Now the problem is that, again, caveman, fight or flight, good. Lady writing check in front of you in the supermarket, not the best time to have a fight or flight response. Why? Because when this adrenaline goes unused, what happens is it does many bad things. So when you get nervous, when you get anxious, when you really feel overwhelmed, what are your signs and symptoms? How many of you experience shortness of breath? Or how many of you experience increased shortness of breath? So a lot of times what happens is you'll be walking up a hill. All of a sudden you start to feel shortness of breath. Your mind kicks in. Wait a second, what am I going to do here? This is what I call the dreaded code red situation, okay? But the problem is that you're already short of breath. your heart is already beating fast because, hey, we might be in trouble here, right? And then throw that adrenaline into the system, and you know what the adrenaline does? That makes you breathe even faster. So it's like adding fuel to the fire. And what does the adrenaline do to your heart? It makes it beat even faster and stronger, to the point where you are wondering to yourself, oh my God, what is going on here? Is this the big one? Am I in trouble? If you can't swim, you're not going in the pool. And if that's the experience that you have every time you walk up a hill and that supermarket is up that hill, then guess what? You're not going to the supermarket. That is the cycle we need to break into, and we need to quiet the sympathetic nervous system. How do we do that? First of all, let's talk a little bit about the impact of the sympathetic nervous system. So what do you think the sympathetic nervous system does to your heart? Okay, it makes your heart beat fast. It makes your heart beat strong. But the other thing it does is it constricts the blood vessels. It constricts the coronary arteries. And when you constrict the coronary arteries, you actually have an increase in the pressure. You have an increase in the shearing force, and you have an increase in the likelihood that you're going to have a cardiac event. One thing that I say to people all the time is that if you have atherosclerosis in one spot, you probably have atherosclerosis in another. What other areas are affected by inflammation? Your GI system, right? Your brain. All of these things. And the thing is that so often, more than not, we're having this explosive fight or flight cascade of events when somebody cuts us off on the road, when somebody bumps into us on the street, when somebody gives us the wrong change in a store. Now here's the thing. That caveman is either going to fight that pterodactyl or fight that saber-toothed tiger, or he's going to sprint away as fast as he can. Those activities, either fighting for your life or fleeing for your life, will actually use up the adrenaline. Okay? It will be used for good. It will be used for a positive impact. It will be used for a positive purpose. However, when you're getting ticked off because that lady in front of you is writing a check in the supermarket, that is not serving you any purpose. But when that lady's writing that check in front of you in the supermarket and you're having that explosive adrenal response, that is not useful to you. Why? Because you're probably not going to fight her unless you're a savage beast, right? And you're probably not going to run away because you need that hair gel. But what happens is that adrenaline impacts every system in your body. It causes your heart rate to go up. It causes your blood pressure to go up. It causes your respiratory rate to go up. And guess what? The harder and faster and shallower you breathe, the more air trapping you get, the more airway narrowing you get, the more bronchospasm you get. And so essentially what I'm telling you is that the harder and faster you breathe, the harder it becomes to breathe. So the harder you work to breathe, the harder it becomes to breathe. So there's short-term and long-term impact of the sympathetic nervous system. Short-term, again, if it's a life and death situation and you need to either fight or flee, it may be helpful to you. Over the long term, it's very, very damaging to all your systems, and it's very, very damaging to all your organs. So what do we do about this, okay?